This is RRGI TV. I welcome you back to Life Principles. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves. And let's dive right into our third segment today that's going to deal with the three primary principles for life. And excuse me if I look over at my notes. I just want to keep myself on pace for what I want to cover during this segment. When we talk about life principles are very important, even though some people who are in the church kind of dispels it as more of a secular thing. Life principles are very much steeped in scriptural principles if done, taught that specific way. What we have to understand is that there are many different arenas for life principles or developing platforms for life principles. Not every principle, every instructor, or every school of thought is based upon biblical life principles. When we look at the Bible is an explicit dossier of many different principles that God inspired man to write to teach us, first of all, our purpose, our originator, and how we are to relate to him and to others, and how we are to live and have a wholesome life in this life. And so it's very important that we first of all begin to understand what is it and what does it mean when we speak of life. Because the scripture and many different arenas speak of life from the various different aspects. Life can be called kahi. It is the energy that moves, or it is the animation that moves an individual in his everyday life, whether that individual is a biomechanism or a bioorganic being, whether it is human, whether it is an animal. And then there's a term for life that deals with bios, and it deals with the biological functions that maintain life and that enable life to be operated within the content in which it was devised. And then there is the word that deals with anima. Anima then is again animation life. It is the ability to move your limbs, or the ability to exercise movement of the mind and of the emotion, which is the thought process or the expression of those thought processes. But then Scripture speaks of a different type of life that we call Zoe. Zoe then is uncreated, uncaused life that deals with the aspects of God's being and God's manifestation of himself. And so when we speak of life principles, we who are from the Essencological school, because life principles is an aspect of Essencology, when we speak of life principles, we literally speak of those contingencies that cause us to be interactive and integrated within a system of life that is God's. And so this system of life that is God's, it deals with, first of all, existence. It deals with thought processes and feelings and emotions. And then it deals with your relationship with, of course, God, others, your surroundings, and with your own mind and your own being. Many people don't understand that they do relate to themselves from the perspective of hearing yourself, listening to your desires, and acclimating into those desires and objectives. And so when we deal with the three primary principles for life, what we deal with is, number one, the understanding of one's existence. Why are you here? What brought you here? What are the obligations for being here? And what are the processes that will make your existence much more profound? Number two, understanding of one's relationship. Relational value, then, is relational perspective. How do you see yourself in conjunction with being in relationship? relationship with God? How do you see yourself in conjunction with your surroundings? How do you relate to an environment that seems to be hostile and that seems to be keeping you from excelling in those objectives and desires for life? How do you relate to those who are around you, to family, to friends, even to those who we call haters or enemies? And then thirdly, understanding one's purpose. When we understand, first of all, that we are here, and we're here for a purpose, and that purpose then fits the design of our somatic structure, our body, our minciological powers, our mind, and then our pneumatological powers, which deal with our spirits. There is a reason we have been forged the way we are. There is a reason, as a species, we have body, soul, and spirit, or physiology, mintiological, or minciological, and pneumatological. Why then are we trichotomy, body, soul, and spirit? And what is the purpose of this existence within this tertiaric unity? Secondly, we have to understand, how does this fit in with how we relate to reality, how we see everything around us, how we see life. What is life? Why do we endeavor to achieve specific things? And so when we look at our construction, our existence, our relationship, and our purpose, the only way they can be defined is through hermeneutics, or philosophical hermeneutics, the interpretation of all phenomena, the interpretation of existence, the interpretation of the phenomena of the mind, the interpretation of the phenomenon of relationship, of purpose, of spirituality. And so when we look at these various aspects of life, these three principles, primary principles for living, we understand that one's existence then deals with what we are physically, what we are mentally, and what we are spiritually. To understand these is to come to a forefront where we now understand why we have the challenges in our bodies, why we should attempt to override and to conquer all of the frailties and keeping this very vessel in which we live alive. And so essencological life principles are concerned with not just success in your achievements, but success in keeping the physiological healthy. When a body is healthy, the mind becomes more stable. When a body is healthy, then there's more energy for an output to achieve. And then, as in ecological life principles, we deal with the understanding of our minciological development or minciological existence. When we talk about the mens or minciological existence, we're talking about now the wellness of mind, the wellness of emotion. Many people have done astronomical or extraordinary feats, and yet within their minds they're sad and they're broken and wounded and still trying to overcome their past fears, their past relationships, their past hurts. And so true life principles will work on your physiology, your mindset, and then your spiritual well-being. What do we mean by spiritual well-being? Sometimes I look at those who proclaim to be in the church, and we have to understand that it is not enough to be in the church. You must have the church working within you, and you working to release more of the church to operate in you in accordance to the will and the desire of God. And so when we speak of the three primary principles of life, or for life, we're speaking that one cannot fully understand life if the physiological is detached from the mind and the spirit. Man as a species is a collective of body, soul, and spirit. And if he is going to build upon those principles of living, he must build body, soul, and spirit. Always remember that when we understand who we are, what we are, we understand that we have physical needs, emotional needs, mental needs, and we have spiritual needs. And so when we understand firstly what we are, and everything that we are has come to us by reason of purpose, we now can foundationally begin to develop ourselves from those three major aspects. You must be healthy in body, healthy in mind/emotion, and healthy spiritually. This is all the time we have. I thank you for joining us, and this has been Life Principles. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves. God bless you.